All right, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Star Wars Mark of Balance. My name is Mark. I am so excited to be back recording for you guys. It's been over a month since I recorded an episode of Mark of Balance, and I apologize up front for the delay on new content and appreciate your patience. Life has been very busy over the past month or two. I was in a car accident. I'm okay, don't worry, but that was just a whole thing in itself. I celebrated a birthday. I've been to a wedding. I've celebrated my sister and my girlfriend's birthday. I moved into a new place. I'm living with my sister now. Life has just been pretty crazy, and I wanted to put my all into the episodes and putting out reels and content for the Instagram, and I didn't think I could deliver that to the best of my ability during all of this, so I wanted to just take the time to reset after the Acolyte, which was a crazy time. It was really great for the channel and the podcast, and I appreciate all the new supporters and all the supporters that have been with me for a while. But it was exhausting to put that much content out there. And of course, all of the, let's say, controversy and the comments that surrounded putting out content related to the Acolyte. I just needed to kind of step away from it all. And now I'm back. I am in a makeshift studio in my sister's house. I am currently set up on a dresser. My laptop's on the dresser. I'm holding my microphone, which is usually in a stand, and I'm using a chair that is usually used for the kitchen table downstairs. So very makeshift, but I want to get more content out there. I've missed recording, so excited to be back and excited to talk about the topic that we are doing today, and that is Star Wars Outlaws, the newest Star Wars video game. It's a third-person open-world action-adventure, and there's been a lot of controversy surrounding the game, to say the least. Some of it extremely warranted, and I'll get into the predatory pricing practices that Ubisoft has implemented and continues to implement with their games. And it's not just Ubisoft. The whole industry is kind of moving towards that, so I'm going to talk about that. But there's also been some controversy surrounding the game that is absolutely ridiculous, like K-Vest not being hot enough or you not being able to play as a guy, you have to play as a woman. You know, this stuff is probably overblown because of social media and because it's the gaming community, but there is a negative connotation around the game because of these separate controversies that I think have contributed to people having already made up their minds before playing the game, or they're profiting or using it as a platform to gain views and likes by just posting clips of the game that make it look really bad, when in reality, I think this is overblown. But I want to be straight up honest at the forefront of this episode. I have only played 10 hours of this game, so this is not a full review. This is my first impressions. I'm going to talk about the gameplay, the music, the atmosphere, the graphics, the performance, the controversy, and a little bit of the story. Like I said, I'm only 10 hours in, so I don't want to oversell or undersell the story yet because I don't know that much. But I do want to talk about it because so far it is pretty interesting. But if you want the elevator pitch, if you want the meat and potatoes, should you buy this game, should you not buy this game, my overall thoughts on Star Wars Outlaws is that this is a Ubisoft game, for better or for worse. The gameplay loop is vintage Ubisoft, and there are some additions and there's some evolutions to their game design, but at the end of the day, it is the typical fetch quests, clearing outposts, being inundated with a to-do list, question marks everywhere on the map. Before you can even explore, they pop up and tell you, hey, come over here, look, there's something over here, instead of letting the map design do that for you. And the combat is very simple and doesn't bring that much new to the table, and I wish there was more to the combat system, especially the melee. But I also want to emphasize that Ubisoft is great at crafting beautiful, immersive open worlds, and that is no exception here with Star Wars Outlaws. You can tell that the team at Massive are massive Star Wars fans. The attention to detail in the music, the sound design, the feel of these cantinas and the backwater towns of these planets, new and old. They've crafted new planets just for this game. The character design and just the general feeling of Star Wars is all here. So I want to make it clear that while Ubisoft has predatory pricing practices, the developers, the people on the ground crafting the game, you can tell that there was love poured into it. And I don't want that to get lost in the controversy or undersold by people that see one glitch and say, oh, look how terrible Ubisoft is, look how terrible Star Wars Outlaws is. That's not me excusing glitches or faulty gameplay, but I think we also have to step back and realize that, hey, Jedi Survivor and Fallen Order were not the best performing games, and they had plenty of issues at launch, worse than Star Wars Outlaws, personally, so far for my playthrough. I definitely am more impressed with the way Outlaws runs than Jedi Survivor and Fallen Order, but I'll get into all that. But this is all to say that if you're expecting a new revolutionary Ubisoft experience, you're not going to find it here. If you've played the Assassin's Creed games, if you've played The Division, if you've played the new Avatar game from Ubisoft, you know what you're going to get here. But if you're a Star Wars fan and you love Star Wars video games, I really do think this game is worthwhile to play. Even if you wait a couple months for a discount, I do think this is a worthwhile experience, at least 10 hours in. I think you'll have a lot of fun exploring these worlds, having that feeling of being a scoundrel in the Star Wars galaxy. The characters are a lot of fun. The combat is serviceable. It's simple, it's straightforward, but it's not bad by any means. And if you go in with tempered expectations of what you're going to get, I think you'll have a really good time with this. If you don't want to spend $70, I totally understand that, and I'm definitely not advocating for you to go out and buy this game immediately if you're still on the fence or if you don't want to put up $70. I totally do not think it's a game where it's like, this is a must play right now, drop everything you can and download it. I don't think I'm saying anything new or different in this space, because I understand that this first impression is coming out weeks after the game's release, and I'm sure there's plenty of YouTubers that have already talked at length about the entire game, but you're here because you appreciate my opinion, and I appreciate you being here. So these are all my big overall thoughts of Star Wars Outlaws, and now I'll dive a little bit deeper into all of the things that I've already mentioned. Firstly, I want to talk about the controversy. So yes, there have been a lot of predatory pricing practices in the gaming industry. This is nothing new. You know, we had loot boxes. We had Star Wars Battlefront 2, the biggest loot boxing scandal in the video game world. I think it's even spawned lawsuits against gambling for minors because of the loot box system. It's nothing new to Star Wars gaming, first of all, and it's nothing new to the gaming industry. But this new round of predatory pricing practices is that these big studios are offering up 3-day early access for games and charging you almost $30 to $40 on top of the $70 price tag just to play the game 3 days early. And some people will say, oh, it's worth it. It's worth it. I'm really excited to play it. And you could do whatever you want with the money. But at the end of the day, you're being manipulated to feel like you need to play the game early, because marketing is all about creating urgency in your customers. So if your game is scheduled to come out on Friday, but you offer this 3-day early access, it comes out on Tuesday, and the real release date for the game is the Tuesday. It isn't Friday. All the people that start playing on Tuesday make the people waiting for Friday be like, oh, no, wait, I need to play because other people are playing it. Oh, there'll be spoilers if I don't play it early. And all of this is what they want you to do. They want you to have a panic mode or have this urgency to buy something that you really don't need to spend more than half the price of the original product to play only 3 days early. It really makes no sense, and it's something that has worked. Unfortunately, college football 25 had so many sales of the early access that other people in the gaming industry are going to say, oh, we need to do this, and all the executive boards will be like, why aren't we doing 3-day early access? And now Star Wars Outlaws is doing it. I don't think it's been as successful, and I think a lot of people have pushed back, which is a good thing, but I want to be very upfront that this is not beneficial to the players. 3-day early access is not the companies coming down and saying, we love our players, we want you to have early access. It's not early access. You're just paying to play it on release date. In this respect, I did not support Star Wars Outlaws in that way. I didn't pay for the gold edition, the deluxe edition. I didn't pay for the early access. I didn't even pre-order it. I waited until it came out. I saw reviews and I said, okay, I am okay with buying this game. I'm excited to play this game. And I bought it on release day. And again, you could do whatever you want with your money, but I encourage everyone, do not pre-order games ever in this day and age. Definitely do not support this predatory pricing practice. You have to think, a $70 game, they're charging you $30, almost half the price just to play 3 days early. That's pretty ridiculous. And on top of this, of course, there's the DLC and season pass included with Star Wars Outlaws if you pay for the $130 version, which, again, for a single player game, the fact that one of the missions is locked behind one of these gold editions is pretty ridiculous. Because, again, it's not that they're giving you extra content. It's content that should have been in the game that they've taken out purposefully to hide behind a paywall so you feel like there's a sense of urgency to pay for that extra content. So I don't support Ubisoft, the big business Ubisoft, in these practices, and I encourage you not to as well, but it's your money, so you could do whatever you want. But I do want to make that distinction between Ubisoft making those pricing decisions and Massive Entertainment, the studio that really brought this game together under Ubisoft. I don't want people to take aim at the developers, judge the developers and the gameplay by that itself, not based on the pricing practices. So let's get into the gameplay. As I've mentioned, this is the typical Ubisoft formula. You're going to be inundated with a to-do list of side tasks. Everyone you run into is going to give you something every 5 seconds, and I understand that some people really like that feeling of checking off a to-do list. Like, that gives people satisfaction and joy, and that's awesome. But when you have games like Elden Ring and Red Dead Redemption and Ghost of Tsushima that have really revolutionized and pushed the open world design and storytelling forward and the intersection of world design and storytelling into their games so well, it makes Outlaws feel archaic in its design because, like I said in the intro, you're going to just be inundated by question marks when you're riding around on your speeder. Whereas in Ghost of Tsushima or Elden Ring, the map gently pushed you along to different points of interest. It didn't have to tell you, hey, come here, open this door, there's something cool behind it. Ghost of Tsushima had the beautiful island of Tsushima tell you there might be something interesting over here by having foxes or parrots or the wind blow in certain directions. And it was all part of the world. Same thing with Elden Ring. The beautiful art style and the scale of all the structures that they created makes your mind go, I want to go explore that. And it's not like on the map it says, look, question mark, what's over here? You don't even have to open your map. You just say, oh my gosh, I want to go over there. So it's very unfortunate that this world design is so far in the past. For Outlaws, I wish there was a way to turn off the question mark stuff on my compass so I could just kind of explore on my own. But to do that, you have to turn off the whole HUD, and then you really don't know where you're going because you need the little waypoint marker to find out where your next objective is, unfortunately. So design-wise, it is lacking in that new age modern feel, but the worlds so far are beautiful and really detailed. The NPCs are always having conversations you can listen in on. I think that was a very interesting thing that Ubisoft has added, that you can kind of just hang around a cantina or walk through the streets, and if you overhear something, you can listen in and be greeted with some information about a treasure or a fixed race that you can bet on. Anything along those lines, which I think is really cool and really tapping into that thing that Elden Ring and Ghost of Tsushima do so well. Again, I think it's pretty shallow because eventually you kind of understand, like, oh, it's obvious that this is going to lead to something, and it gets added to your to-do list. So it's less about listening and more like, oh, I just have to interact with these two characters and then the quest will pop up, instead of you having to remember, like, oh, I remember they mentioned that this would happen, so I have to follow that trail. It kind of just becomes another fetch quest, unfortunately. On the combat side, I think the gunplay feels good. Like, the blaster feels weighty. It feels vintage Star Wars. It sounds beautiful. You know, the blaster bolts, the explosions, the music, everything from a sound perspective feels fantastic. You're unfortunately only allowed to use Kay's pistol, and it only has a couple shooting modes. So, there is some differences, but so far it feels very surface level, and I don't think it's going to evolve that much. You do have the option to pick up weapons that your enemies drop, which is really fun, or sending Nyx, the little companion, to go get it and bring it to you. But I do wish that there was some changes to the blaster archetype, but I think they were very much trying to draw from that Han Solo feel. I do think moving around and shooting feels really good, like feels really scoundrel-esque. You don't have to hide behind cover like in Gears of War or in The Division. You're like stuck to the cover. You can kind of maneuver, run, and gun, and it all feels really good when you're aiming down sights and running sideways. It's all very keeping you in the combat, and it doesn't feel like you're just sitting behind cover waiting for them to pop up. You shoot, they go down, you go down, they go up. It does feel dynamic in that perspective. Where I do think the combat really lacks is the melee combat and the stealth. The melee combat, I was really hoping that you would get some melee weapons like a taser or some sort of baton or something like that, or even like a Magna Guard staff that you see from the Clone Wars. But it's really just your fists. You just punch, again, we have this stupid Disney trope of punching stormtroopers in their helmet, and that knocks them out. And that's full on display here. Really not satisfying. So the melee combat is really unfortunate. Most of the time, if you're, in the midst of combat, you're going to want to shoot. You're going to want to stun people. That's really the core of it. But I wish the melee just had a little more meat to it. The stealth is, again, vintage Ubisoft stealth. Walk in the tall grass, enemies walk by you, you whistle, they come over, you beat them up, you send Nix to distract someone. AI's pretty dumb. They see you out in the open, and then you hide in the bush for like 30 seconds and like, oh, I guess it was nothing. So the stealth, again, is very surface level. I wish there was an elevation to that, but maybe there will be. I'm only 10 hours in, but I don't think it's going to evolve that much in the rest of my playthrough. Other smaller aspects of the gameplay are side games like sabacc or arcade games or betting on fairer races. So, the big floppy-eared animals that we saw in Last Jedi, you can bet on those races and you can find leads on how to predict the winners. And that's really fun, but it's only one thing you can bet on, and it's the same animation every time. Sabacc, though, is so much fun. I have loved it so far. There are tokens that change the way the game plays. It feels great when you can outthink all of the other people at the table. There are high roller tables that you can really go for big money and big wagers, and that feels awesome when you hit or when you nail a sabacc right at the right time. I'm really excited for that mini game moving forward and seeing how big it could get. I really want to have like a Casino Royale James Bond moment where I'm like full all in against Lando or any of the other big players in the sabacc world in Star Wars. So I think that'll be really, really cool, and I'm excited to see where that goes as I get deeper into it. But sabacc is an awesome side game. And then they have these little mini games that are like arcade games, but in Star Wars, and that's fun, like Asteroid Shooter, that kind of stuff. That's pretty cool. As for other side content, it's really a mixed bag. You have your typical Ubisoft fetch quests. That's most of them, unfortunately, but I think they do a good enough job of adding character and a Star Wars spin to it that makes it really entertaining, even if it is just a fetch quest, and it feels like an adventure. I know they showed the Sarlacc pit. You go and retrieve a Sarlacc tooth from a dead Sarlacc, which is pretty cool. I haven't gotten to that side mission yet, but there was a side mission where someone in the Crimson Dawn hired me to go retrieve something in an escape pod, and you go out and you realize that the escape pod had a living being in it, and it was actually the boyfriend of the person that hired you. And the Pike Syndicate is also involved, and it takes you to a space station in an asteroid field where you have to steal a key card, and then when you find the boyfriend, he either has information that you can take for yourself, or you can just let him go free. And that decision is completely up to you, and it could either earn you reputation with the Pike Syndicate, or you can just take the credits and be on a good side with the Crimson Dawn. So those little wrinkles of Star Wars-isms and the reputation system make the fetch quest feel a little bit more fleshed out and a bit more of an evolution to Ubisoft. But again, I haven't seen the full gambit of side quests, and I'm excited at least to see more of them because I think the writing has been good enough to keep me interested in the side quests I have done so far. I mentioned the reputation system, which is essentially all of the major crime syndicates you have a reputation with. So there's the Hutt clan, the Ashiga clan, the Crimson Dawn, and then the new clan that they created for this game called the Zarek Besh, where the main villain is. and you can do jobs for each of them, and sometimes those jobs influence your credibility with other syndicates. So you can do a job for this Pikes and it'll earn you reputation with them, but you also crossed the Crimson Dawn in the same breath, and now your reputation with Crimson Dawn went down. So there is like a balancing act, and there is a game within a game, and like I said, there is player choice in this. So it is fun, and I really like it, and I'm excited to see more of it. And there's rewards you can get for each syndicate. So the higher reputation you have with the Pikes, you get new cosmetics and new opportunities that they wouldn't offer to someone that's in poor standing with them. So it's all really cool, but I think unfortunately there is a shallowness to it where your decisions don't really have lasting effects, because you could always just do more missions and kind of get back in the good graces of any of these syndicates, even if you do something like wildly terrible to them, like wipe all of their credits and banking from a planet's Imperial hard drive. And it's like, could you really bounce back from that by like doing a fetch quest for them? I don't think so, but again, it's a game, so you have to have some liberties taken over the course of the game to still make it fun and not lock people out of syndicates. I do want to talk about the story just a bit. I'm not going to get into any spoilers, not that I would have any. I'm only 10 hours in and I just left the first planet. But so far, I think this is shaping up to be a very straightforward and fun heist adventure set in the Star Wars galaxy. I don't think it's going to break that mold of all of the tropes that you would expect from a heist storyline. All of the story beats that you've seen in a million movies before are here on full display, and I'm only 10 hours in. You know, the typical, we need to put together a team. You meet the first person. I'm putting together a team, and they're like, nah, I'm not in. And then you're like, are you sure? And they're like, you son of a bitch, I'm in if there's money involved. And it's like, yeah, you've seen that 1,000 times before. Rick and Morty made a whole episode making fun of the heist movie genre. So it's going to be that, and I don't think it's going to be mind-blowing. I don't think it's going to ask those really deep philosophical questions that maybe Jedi Survivor and Jedi Fallen Order asked, but that doesn't mean this won't be a fun story and a fun addition to Star Wars lore and the world of Star Wars between episodes 5 and 6. I think Kay is a solid protagonist so far. I'm excited to see more about her backstory. I hope they dive into that, maybe how she met Nix. And her one-liners have landed for the most part. You know, she hasn't been the typical annoying main protagonist in a lot of modern video games that we've been seeing, where they just talk way too much or they just keep saying the worst, most cringy lines ever. So that's really all I have to say about her so far. And the side characters have been really great. I think the villain has been menacing enough. I think the contract broker that you meet early on in the game is really cool as like a mentor figure to her. I just met ND5, the commando droid with the trench coat, coolest design for a character ever. And yeah, I'm excited to see, you know, the personalities of the crew and a little bit more about these different worlds. Again, I've only been on 2 worlds so far, so I'm excited to see Tatooine, Jabba, and the 2 other worlds that are out there. Oh, and one cool little story thing, I don't want to spoil anything, but there was a nod to the High Republic in one of the missions so far that was really cool, and there were some data logs that if you read them, it references stuff directly from the books, which I thought was really cool, and again speaks to Massive being huge Star Wars fans and a lot of love for Star Wars being put into this game. So I just wanted to call that out. If that designer comes across this episode, I love you for putting the High Republic in this. The last thing I want to discuss is the performance of Star Wars Outlaws. You know, how does the game run? Because if you go on Instagram or you go on YouTube and you look up Star Wars Outlaws, you will be inundated with clips of the game running terribly. And I think they're very disingenuous in the picture that they paint about Star Wars Outlaws, because in reality, I think they're very much trying to profit or ride the back of the algorithm of all the negativity surrounding Star Wars Outlaws. Now, I'm not excusing any of these glitches, but I think they're extremely overblown based on my gameplay experience so far. And we have to acknowledge the double standard here, because most open world games have some bugs and some jank to them. It's just inherent to making huge open worlds. I mean, Red Dead Redemption 2 has jank to it. Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor have pretty terrible performance in their open worlds. Now, I understand that some of these games are so amazing in the narrative, in the story, in the map design, and that lets you overlook some of those glitches. And I understand that Star Wars Outlaws doesn't get that grace because it isn't on the same level narratively as Red Dead Redemption 2 or other Rockstar games. But I think I just want to be upfront that, you know, if you're seeing all these clips of this game running terribly, I don't think they're very representative of the actual experience, because the frame rates for me have been really solid. The open worlds and even the densely populated areas, it's all been smooth and seamless. I haven't seen huge frame rate drops. You can go from a cantina to the outside world with speeders zipping around, or you can go from the landing pad into your ship, and it's all seamless, and the frame rates don't drop at all, really, for me at least. I can't notice it that badly. So I don't want this game to get this reputation that it runs horribly because you just keep seeing clips of people taking the worst parts of the game. It really does run well. Now, having said that, I did run into a game-breaking issue at one point in the game, which was pretty bad. I was stuck in hyperspace, in a loading screen for hyperspace for a long time. It was definitely broken, and I had to close the game, restart it, and jump back a load point, which was annoying, and it's terrible, and it's ridiculous, and games should not release with issues this big. I don't know how widespread it is. Luckily for me, it wasn't a big issue because my save point was pretty recent, but it is something I have to be upfront about and acknowledge that while my frame rates have been really steady throughout my gameplay, the draw distances have been beautiful, there hasn't been any pop-in, this was a game-breaking issue that I ran into. I've only ran into it once in 10 hours of gameplay, so I can't say it's a persistent thing, but it is something you should be aware of, and I don't know how widespread it is, but I think overall performance-wise, the game runs well, even though the clips online might be saying something else. At least in my experience. Disclaimer. So those are my first impressions of Star Wars Outlaws. I've really enjoyed my time with the game. I want to play it when I'm not playing it, which is always a positive when talking about video games. As someone who loves video games and experiencing the best of the best in this art form and genre, I acknowledge the shortcomings of this gameplay design that Ubisoft has created for Star Wars Outlaws. It feels dated, and the open world design is leagues behind the cutting edge like Elden Ring and Ghost of Tsushima. And my enjoyment of this game really stems from my love for Star Wars. And I think if you are a huge fan of Star Wars and you are itching for a new Star Wars game, I think you will have a very fun time exploring these beautiful worlds, getting lost in the seedy underbelly of Star Wars, appreciating that iconic Star Wars sound design, the beautiful music, and having a fun, simple, in the best and worst ways, Star Wars adventure. That's all I have for today's episode. Thank you guys so much for listening, and thank you so much for your patience. If you've been waiting for me to drop an episode, I am sorry for the wait, but I promise I am back and excited and reinvigorated to get you guys more consistent content. I have my makeshift studio all set up, and I have some really exciting things coming up for the future of the channel. I hope this was a helpful episode for you guys if you are on the fence about Star Wars Outlaws, and that I've made your decision at least maybe more informed. So please leave a review on whatever streaming platform you're listening to this on if you enjoyed this episode, and follow me on Instagram at @star_wars_mark of balance. Thank you guys again so much for listening. As always, stay safe, stay healthy, and may the Force be with you. Peace.